Somewhere beneath this jungle is one of Southeast Asia's busiest international airports, and the nearest major city is 55 kilometers away. Most people who land here have the same thought. Why is this airport in the middle of nowhere? The answer isn't what you'd expect. If you've ever landed at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, you know the feeling. You step off a long-haul flight. You clear customs. You grab your bag, and then you check the map. 45 minutes on a good day, over an hour if traffic decides otherwise. And the whole drive, you're looking out the window at nothing but trees. No skyline creeping into view, no urban density, just jungle and highway. It's the kind of thing that makes travelers ask questions. Was this poor planning? A miscalculation? Did someone just pick the wrong location on a map? No, they picked it very deliberately. And understanding why changes how you see not just this airport, but how great infrastructure actually gets built. To understand KLIA, you have to go back to Malaysia in the early 1990s. The country was accelerating. Industrialization was happening fast. Foreign investment was pouring in. And air travel demand was projected to grow massively in the coming decades. The existing airport, Subang, had a problem. It was completely surrounded. Roads, housing estates, commercial development, all of it closing in from every direction. There was no room to add runways, no room to expand terminals, no room to grow. Planners faced a decision that would define Malaysian aviation for the next half-century, and they chose to build new. The location they chose was Sepang. At first glance, flatland, palm plantations, jungle, empty space. But to the engineers and planners looking at it, that emptiness wasn't a problem. KLIA was never designed for the Malaysia of 1998. It was designed for the Malaysia of 2030 and beyond. The master plan called for multiple runways, large terminal complexes, dedicated cargo infrastructure, room for satellite terminals, and, critically, space to keep expanding without asking anyone's permission. Compare that to Heathrow, one of the world's most important airports, and adding a single runway has been fought over in courts and parliament for literally decades. The reason? The city grew around it. It's locked in. KLIA doesn't have that constraint. The land around it is managed. The flight paths are clear. The operations run 24 hours a day without the same level of noise complaints that plague urban airports. That green buffer you see from the window, it isn't accidental wilderness. It reduces noise impact on surrounding communities. It provides safety clearances for flight approaches. It keeps dense residential development from creeping in and creating the exact problem Subang faced. And the result? Kuala Lumpur International Airport has grown into one of Southeast Asia's major aviation hubs, with the physical capacity to keep scaling in ways that older, city-locked airports simply cannot. The distance was always going to be a question, and the planners knew it. Which is why KLIA wasn't built as a standalone airport. It was built as part of a connected transport system. The express rail link, the KLIA Express, connects the airport directly to KL Central in the city center. Travel time, around 28 minutes. That's faster than getting across many cities from their own airports. The distance was never meant to be solved by making the airport closer. It was meant to be solved by making the journey faster. Those are two very different approaches, and one of them preserves the land, the expansion capacity, and the operational freedom that the airport needs. There's a tension that sits at the heart of every major infrastructure decision: convenience now or capacity later. Airports built close to city centers are easy to reach today and impossible to expand tomorrow. The communities grow around them. The noise complaints multiply. The runways can't be lengthened. The terminals can't be added. Malaysia, in the 1990s, chose the harder path. They built 55 kilometers out. They surrounded it with buffer land. They planned for a future that didn't exist yet. And what felt like an inconvenient distance at the time turned out to be strategic foresight. The forest isn't isolation, it's insulation. Insulation from the congestion, noise disputes, and expansion problems that are quietly crippling airports that were built too close, too fast. So the next time you land at Kuala Lumpur International Airport and stare out the window at 55 kilometers of highway in green, maybe the question isn't why it's so far. Maybe the question is, what would this city look like if it wasn't? Would expansion have stalled by now? Would KLIA be fighting for runway space? Would Kuala Lumpur be dealing with the same gridlock problems that come with urban airports everywhere? That's the perspective the drive doesn't give you, but the bigger picture does. Today, KLIA handles tens of millions of passengers every year. It's a hub for Malaysia Airlines, AirAsia, and dozens of international carriers connecting Southeast Asia to the world. But more than the numbers, it's what the airport represents. In the 1990s, Malaysia was a developing nation, punching above its weight, building infrastructure that signaled a belief in its own future. KLIA was built in the same spirit as the Petronas Towers, not just as a functional structure, but as a statement, a declaration that Malaysia was not building for the present. It was building for the region. And airports, more than almost any other piece of infrastructure, are a measure of national ambition. There is still land around KLIA that hasn't been touched, still runways that haven't been built, still phases of the masterplan still waiting to be activated. That's not a sign of a project that ran out of ideas. The 55 kilometers isn't a flaw in the design, it's a feature of the vision. So the next time you land at Kuala Lumpur International Airport and stare out the window at 55 kilometers of highway and green, maybe the question isn't why it's so far. Maybe the question is, what would this city look like if it wasn't? Would expansion have stalled by now? Would KLIA be fighting for runway space? Would Kuala Lumpur be dealing with the same gridlock problems that come with urban airports everywhere? That's the perspective the drive doesn't give you, but the bigger picture does. If you want to keep exploring the hidden logic behind the cities and places we travel, subscribe. There's always more beneath the surface.